I think we're live now.
Hello, Hart.
Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing?
Doing very well today. Thank you.
So I'm in Kentucky. Kathleen is in California. Kathleen is with Contact Organics, and I'm with the Climate Report, Water and Climate, and Soil for Climate. And we're going to talk about glyphosate. Glyphosate, our best friend.
Yeah, not.
So let me, so I've got a handy dandy fact sheet from Beyond Pesticides. All I did today was I Googled Beyond Pesticides, glyphosate. I got this 4-page document. It's excellent. We're going to talk about glyphosate because the more people are aware of it, the more we can actually do something about it. Not enough people are aware of it. I used to be aware of the harms of glyphosate. Well, no, forget that. But we're going to talk about how glyphosate gets into our food.
Yes.
And other things. But so I'm reading from Beyond Pesticides. Despite the prevalent myth that widely used herbicide is harmless, glyphosate N-phosphonomethylglycine is associated with a wide range of illnesses, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, genetic damage, liver and kidney damage, endocrine disruption, as well as environmental damage, including water contamination and harm to amphibians. Researchers have also determined that the inert ingredients in glyphosate products, especially polyiethoxylated toluamine, or POEA, a surfactant. I know what a surfactant is. Most leaves have a kind of a glossy protectant. The surfactant is going to dissolve that.
It's what makes it stick to the plant.
Oh, okay. So the surfactant makes it stick to the plant. Commonly used in glyphosate and other herbicidal products are even more toxic than glyphosate itself. Monsanto, manufacturer of glyphosate, formulates many products such as Roundup and Rodeo and markets formulations exclusively used on genetically engineered crops. Glyphosate is one of the most widely used herbicides in the world, due in large part to the increased cultivation of GE, or genetically engineered crops, that are tolerant of the herbicide. So, is it herbicide or herbicide?
Herbicide in the US.
Herbicide. Herbicide in the West and herbicide in the East.
I'm guessing in Europe they say herbicide because they say herbs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a good question. Herbicide, herbicide. I guess people use both.
I think people use both. When I grew up in a rural area, the H was pronounced herbicide. So, Kathleen, what can we say about glyphosate?
I would say that, I discovered this stuff kind of a little bit later in life after I'd had my kids, and I was looking into finding ways to keep them as healthy as possible. And I started looking at diet, and I started talking to farmers about what was really out there. And when I found out, about the GM farming, that all these crops, like massive quantities of corn and soy and other GM crops like beets, sugar beets, be careful of the sugar you buy, all kinds of these products are in all kinds of foods that you give to fish. I mean, like kids, like I'm thinking like goldfish, crackers, like all the standard things that you would give to your kid in the stroller, Cheerios, whatever, even little rice treats, whatever, cookies, all full of glyphosate, I found out. And I was really kind of mortified because the more study I did on glyphosate, the more I discovered it does to us. I mean, and everything, the animals, the soil biology. Behind me, it's raining today, which is a rare occurrence in California, but it's in the rain. There's so much of it being used out there that it's in the rain, it's in our rivers, it's in our water supply, tap water. It's a tiny molecule too, so it's really hard to get out. And we, in our house, we have a special water filtration system that takes out glyphosate, but nearly none of the water purification systems, when you talk to anyone and you ask them, does this system take out glyphosate? Almost no one claims it because They just don't even do the testing to do it. It's a tiny molecule and nobody realizes that they should be doing it, but it's in city water, it's in farm water, it's in rivers, it's affecting wildlife, it affects birds. You know, deer run around now with big tumors on their necks. If you talk with friends who, you know, hunt from being exposed to these crop chemicals, and it's not just glyphosate. I'm always careful when we talk about it. Glyphosate is the world's most used herbicide or pesticide. It falls under the pesticide category on the planet, and it's just used so much. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's in our food. It's in the air. It's in the water. It's in the dirt. It's just all over the place, and it is harming us. It's harming everything from the soil biology, you know, up through every creature in nature. It's frightening, actually. They've gotten a free pass to distribute it everywhere. It's used in landscaping. It's used in your park. It's used in school grounds. It's used on crops. It was glyphosate, the active ingredient, which is only one part of, say, you discussed, you know, Roundup and rodeo and surfactants and so on. And we'll get into that. But the only thing they have to do when they're getting approval of these products like Roundup is they only need approval for what the company says is the active ingredient. Nobody at the EPA double checks that. Nobody at the EPA checks any of it to say, well, is this really the most toxic part of your formulation? It doesn't happen. And all the science that's presented to the EPA is presented by the company that's looking for approval. Mm-hmm. And when you have as much money and power as these huge companies have, you can buy your scientists and buy your science. Mm-hmm. And so you can say to the EPA, look, it's safe enough, you know, and you can even cover things up that you found that might have been problematic, which was the case with Monsanto, which is why I'm sure everyone's heard of the lawsuits where Monsanto and now Bayer are liable for billions of dollars on thousands of cases. And that's only for lymphoma. That's not even for all the other cancers that glyphosate causes or glyphosate-based product cause. It's not for the liver or kidney damage or whatever else it does to you. And for me, like looking back, as many problems as there are with the product, the worst product is the initial one that glyphosate was developed as. It used to be an industrial pipe cleaner. So it binds to metals. And I have a farmer friend who could name all of them, but like, you know, nutrients that we need, like, you know, calcium and nutrients that would be, say, in a multivitamin.
Right.
Glyphosate will bind to a lot of those. And it was used before to put through pipes for industry to get rid of all that buildup, and it would attach to it, and then they'd run it through the pipe and clean the pipe out. And they figured out at some point that it ran out the back of the pipe into some pond somewhere. And they were like, well, you know, they knew it killed plants, but when it ran out into the pond and they found some living, I think it was algae or something that was resistant to it in the pond, they said, hey, you know, what if we use this and like made a way to use it with whatever that gene is that makes that living, I'm pretty sure it was algae, resistant to this glyphosate. So it started as a pipe cleaner, and then when it went out the pipes and they discovered it killed the weeds, then it was a weed killer. And then when they looked at it and said, hey, there's a gene we can isolate that's resistant to this glyphosate, and if we put that in the crops, we could sell these special crops that are glyphosate resistant, and the farmers can spray the whole field, the whole county, everything with glyphosate-based products, and that crop will survive and all the weeds around it will disappear, and it's so much easier for the farmer. Let's go. So somehow it was sold as a great idea that we would take these seeds and chemically treat them and genetically alter them so they're resistant to glyphosate, and then we'll plant them, and then we'll spray the heck out of them, and then we'll put them in the cereal boxes and everything else, and we'll give them to our population. And we'll also take those crops that are coated in these chemicals and raised, you know, sprayed with Roundup or whatever glyphosate-based product, and let's feed it to the animals. And we're going to feed it to all the animals. We're going to truck it, and we're going to start these massive CAFOs. CAFO is confined animal feeding operation. We're going to start massively raising pigs, chicken, cows, and we're going to feed them all this junk. So not only is your family getting this chemical in their cereal box or cookies or whatever else, they're also getting it in the meat they're eating. And the story goes that, oh, it doesn't affect anyone. It just passes right through. It only affects plants. It only affects what's called the shikimate pathway in plants. And that's why it kills plants, because it messes that system up. So then people don't have a shikimate pathway. So it's not going to hurt people. It's just going to pass right through. Well, turns out that's not actually true, because our gut flora has a shikimate pathway. So when we consume glyphosate, not only is it glomming on to the minerals and nutrients we need in our food, because it's still doing that. So it still sucks that up. So the chemical or the minerals will be present in our system. If you measure for it, the minerals are there, but they're not bioavailable. Our body cannot absorb the nutrients from the food that we need. And the shikimate pathway in our gut flora is wiped out. So we can't process the food properly.
That's fascinating. So you're saying that the shikimate pathway is it's a chemical set of chemical processes, and plants do it and animals don't do it, but it affects the gut flora, the bacteria in our gut that are necessary for absorbing nutrients from food.
Yeah, the way it kills plants is by interfering with the shikimate pathway, which is, I think, an enzymatic process. And it does the same in our gut flora. So what happens, long story short, I haven't made it that short, but in the field, the nutrients are lowered in the food because the glyphosate that's sprayed over everything gloms onto the minerals, making them unavailable. So the plants have lower nutrition. Even though the minerals are present, you can't get those nutrients. But I think that the plants are lacking in nutrients anyway, because they can't get it out of the soil. It's locked in the soil in the glyphosate. So the plants have lower nutrition to start with. We feed them to the animals. So the animals have mineral deficiencies in their systems. So the meat has lower nutrition. So we're eating food that's a little less nutritious to begin with. And then once it gets in our body, with the glyphosate, we receive less of the nutrition that we would have, fewer the minerals that we would have from the food in our system, because it's blocked again by the glyphosate. And then the shikimate pathway is harmed in our gut flora, so we can't process the food properly. So there's lower nutrition, messes up our digestion, and our health and our immunity is centered in our gut. Our gut flora helps us with our brain activity, how smart we are, how much energy we have, how strong our immune system is. It helps us with mood control. So all of those things are gummed up when we put glyphosate into our system. Our immunity is lowered, everything. And then, worse, it affects our reproductive ability. So if we're eating glyphosate while we're pregnant, say we're a mom, or we're nursing and the kid's getting glyphosate, it's not good for anyone. And we just keep passing it along. And the worst part is this, they said that it would not bioaccumulate in our bodies. Glyphosate would not bioaccumulate. That's what they said. Oh, pass right through, doesn't hurt people, doesn't hurt animals, won't stay enough. Well, that's not actually true. That's not actually true. It does bioaccumulate. It has been found by scientists in bone marrow or in cancer tumors. There's a scientist in Scandinavia, Ib Peterson. He studied pigs because he had a pig farm. And, if pigs can't reproduce properly, or if the piglets are born and they're deformed, that can drive farmers out of business if their animals are not born healthy. And that's happened actually to a lot of farmers. And so Ib did some experimentation twice on all of his pigs, and he experimented with feeding them food that contained glyphosate or food that didn't. And the birth defects they disappeared when he got rid of the glyphosate in his animals' feed.
Yeah, and if that's true with pigs, then it's going to be true for other mammals.
Yes. Now, I will say, in fairness, I really thought about this, and I'm guessing that the pig feed had much higher concentrations of glyphosate than what you might find in your Cheerios cereal box in terms of the actual level of glyphosate. But the problem with that, with thinking along those lines, is that all of the latest science says that the dose does not make the poison. The traditional way of thinking about poison was, or, you know, pesticides, these chemicals, is that if you don't reach a certain amount, it won't be that dangerous. If it's only a little, it's not dangerous. That's not true at all. Turns out with the studies of endocrinology that even in parts per trillion, glyphosate causes severe damage. It starts to induce cancer cells to form, breast cancer, and the effects on children and fetuses, it's just different. You have a different bad effect. It's not better. The effect just changes sometimes depending on the amount, but it's all really bad for developing fetuses and for all of us. I mean, it doesn't matter what age we are. It's just not good for us. It's not good for the soil biology. It's not good for the animals. And so
let me read another part. Yeah, let me read another part of the fact sheet from Beyond Pesticides. It's a fact sheet about glyphosate. If you, by the way, if you want this fact sheet, just Google Beyond Pesticides glyphosate, and this is the PDF. There are two things that pop up, and this is the PDF. So it says here, glyphosate is an antibiotic. So therefore, the destruction of bacteria in the human gut is a major contributor to disease. And the destruction of soil microbiota leads to unhealthy agricultural systems with an increasing dependence on agricultural chemicals. Disturbing the microbiota in both the soil and the gut, disturbing the microbiota can contribute to a whole host of 21st century diseases, including 21st century diseases is in quotes. So a lot of this stuff, you know, starting in the late 20th century, I've heard like my man, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says that, is that like, are we going to get banned for that? But so.
No, he was integral to the lawsuits against Monsanto.
Yeah, so. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the lead attorney for lawsuits against Monsanto.
I don't know if he was a lead, but he was.
Well, he was lead attorney for Environmental Defense Fund. So anyway, so it says, so he says that in 1989, I don't know why it wasn't 1990 or 1985 or 1995, in 1989, there was a huge uptick in a range of diseases that can all be traced to about 11, and it's not genetic, maybe 11 environmental factors that are traceable to 1989. And one of the possible culprits in a lot of the diseases that we experience. Yeah, well, here's a list of them. Disturbing the microbiota can contribute to a whole host of 21st century diseases, including diabetes, obesity, food allergies, heart disease, antibiotic-resistant infections, cancer, asthma, autism, irritable bowel syndrome, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, celiac disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and more. The rise of these same diseases is tightly correlated with the use of herbicide glyphosate, and glyphosate exposure can result in inflammation that is the root of these diseases. So all the, Dr. Zach Bush says that inflammation is like so pervasive in so many diseases, you have to start to think of inflammation itself as kind of inflammation is the disease. It just takes many different forms. Yeah, root cause. And we know that inflammation, I'm going to use the C word. Inflammation is one I was listening to a panel of doctors today. When it comes to COVID, people don't die from the virus, they die from inflammation and blood clots. So just saying, if you can deal, if your body is better, it has less inflammation to start with, or if your immune system is better equipped to deal with inflammation, then you're going to, experience less trouble with COVID. But it says, last sentence in this paragraph, glyphosate appears to have more negative impacts on beneficial bacteria, allowing pathogens to flourish. So lots of different diseases according to, this fact sheet has 61 footnotes for 2 pages. So 2 pages has 61 footnotes. They have done their research, and they know that this product is sold by a company with deep pockets, and if they say anything wrong, they're going to get sued out of existence. So they have to get their facts straight. So everything that's in here is very well documented.
Yeah, and they haven't even, they haven't even scratched the surface on all the documentation they could put. They had to stop at 2 pages. There's so much science out there now. There's zero debate on anything that you're saying or anything that I've said. There is no debate. It kills. It kills what it touches. It kills what it touches. It sucks the minerals out of the environment, out of the food, out of you. It causes inflammation. And it destroys the environment. It destroys the soil biology. It makes the plants unhealthy, so that these farmers, first they have to buy the expensive seed, and then they have to buy the Roundup, and then they have to buy, all kinds of fertilizers and all kinds of products to try and stop the mycotoxins, the fungi, the mold, and the disease that comes in the plants, because they're so weak. They're just diseased plants. And so it's a whole thing that the farmers have to buy. And in the end, the crops are very expensive. But it's interesting because recently the price of glyphosate has gone up very much, and farmers are really afraid because they don't work on huge margins and they just can't afford it. The big selling point for glyphosate for so long has been, well, it's so cheap. But that's not true now. It's really, the price is going up on glyphosate. So that's actually good. I wish it would just get priced out of the market. And then, there's its evil twin too, glyphosate. Like 80% of GM crops, more or less, out there are glyphosate resistant. And the other 20% are glyphosate resistant, which is Bayer's product for Liberty Link crops. Rather than say Roundup Ready or glyphosate resistant crops, you would have Liberty Link, which will support glyphosate. And a lot of it, what's been used in landscaping has always been glyphosate or Roundup or rodeo. But so many people have become aware of the dangers of glyphosate, they'll ask landscapers, please don't use glyphosate anymore. And so they say, okay, we're not, but they're using glyphosate, which is just a cousin that is not good either. So it's a little distressing, but I'm happy that there's more awareness about all the problems with glyphosate. And I'm also very grateful for entities like Beyond Pesticides. I have to say they're probably my favorite for pesticide awareness. They're very honest, very straight shooters. They don't get into politics. They don't argue with other people, and they don't post things that aren't true. And I really love them for a source. They really have their hearts in protecting all of us from what's in the environment. So can't say enough good things about Beyond Pesticides, but this one pager is brilliant. So keep asking questions.
Well, sure. So the word chelator comes to mind. So chelator is CHEILATOR.
CHEL.
CHELATOR. So
ATOR, it means to claw or to grab, and basically what it means is it just pulls it out. It makes it unavailable for you.
So it means it binds to minerals. So glyphosate is a chelator. That means it binds to metals. So
right.
it takes if it gets into your body, it gets the iron, what else is a metal? Zinc, maybe?
Yeah, I think zinc's one. Which metals does glyphosate chelate? And I'll read it. I wish I were as handy as my farmer friend. He's got it. He just rips them off, but I can't Let's see, manganese is one. Let's see, glyphosate, chelating agent. Okay, oh, it's in abbreviated. Calcium, iron, zinc, aluminum, manganese, and there's more. There are more, but that's, I guess, the main ones.
So if let's say it's somebody who struggles with osteoporosis, which is, I think calcium is a factor in that, that's going to make it harder for the calcium to get to your bones like it's needed.
Absolutely. I mean, these are critical minerals.
Plus iron is, if you don't have enough iron, that's anemia.
Well, they had, did something happen? Okay. They had a real problem up in one of the northern states. I think it might have been Minnesota. And I heard a scientist speak about this. And they had, in the northern part of the US, in different regions, they'll have different sort of soil contents that will run through areas. And there was this one region, this farming region, where they had a lot of excess manganese. And it was sort of a problem that they had too much manganese in their soil. It was a problem for crops. But then they started planting GM crops and using glyphosate. And then after a number of years, the cattle started being born with deformations because they had manganese deficiencies. Mm. And so the vets were trying to figure out what was going on. And the region completely flipped because the glyphosate, was binding to all the manganese and the cows weren't getting it from their diet. And so the calves were born deformed, just like what happened to Ib Peterson with his piglets in Scandinavia. Mm-hmm. And Ib actually published 2 studies. They're peer-reviewed, published, like it's the real deal. And yeah, this happens. And so do you, think about it when you're pregnant, your baby needs all those nutrients. Do you want to eat food that has glyphosate? I mean, I strongly suggest that every mother go organic as much as possible, or at a minimum, avoid GM foods that would have been raised, basically soaked in glyphosate. So that would be, sugar beets grow in the ground and they're completely in the dirt with glyphosate. They're glyphosate tolerant, they get harvested, and you're eating that. And I have to say that standard cane sugar is another that you should think about trying to buy organic as well, though, because even though that's not a genetically engineered crop that's genetically, manipulated to withstand glyphosate application, it's kind of the opposite problem, because the other thing they do with glyphosate, other than using it on glyphosate tolerant crops, is they use it on crops that are not tolerant to glyphosate just before harvest to dry them down. And sugarcane is one of those crops, and they have a real problem with that in those regions where they use sugar, like in Central America. The farm workers have been affected and died at a really high rate. I think it was their livers or kidneys were poisoned by glyphosate and they were dying. So the farmers the landowners were losing their employees because they were dying. But what they would do is they would go into the sugarcane fields. This is still common practice, and cover the sugarcane fields with glyphosate so that they could harvest more quickly. So they'll spray the crop so it dies faster and dries out. When it's crispier, you can harvest it more quickly. And so they go in, they spray the field with glyphosate, and then the guys go in to work in the field and they're covered. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen a sugarcane field, but it's like on your head and your arms, your whole body. And they're in there without their shirts and they're rubbing around in these plants that were sprayed with glyphosate. And so it's going into their body. Plus, when they take a break, they'll cut off a part of the sugarcane and then they'll suck on it, right? And straight glyphosate. So, they do that on almost all grains, wheat, barley, oats, and they use it more sort of in the northern regions, places like Canada and so on, where they have a short growing season because they want to hurry up and harvest it. So they'll coat all those crops with glyphosate, and then it goes right in your cereal box or your Quaker Oats. Yeah. Telling you, buy organic.
Yeah, oats. They do that with wheat also, I believe.
Wheat, oats, rye, a ton of gluten-free foods. So say you're celiac or you have health issues, or you have a kid who's autistic or has digestive issues, and you're buying gluten-free because you think it's safer for your family. And it might be from the point of view of the gluten, but they have very high glyphosate content oftentimes. So it's hard to find, but try to find organic and gluten-free so that you're not trading gluten for glyphosate.
So Dr. Zach Bush said he thinks, just one person's opinion, but he thinks that that gluten allergies are really glyphosate sensitivity.
There could be something to that. I think there are two factors. I think he could possibly be right. I've seen him speak, and I think he's probably onto something. But there's another component in that we have changed the wheat hybrids
Right.
in the past 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the hybrids that we have, that we've created to resist things like wheat rust or different problems you might have with wheat crops to make the wheat plants more resilient, they're also much higher in gluten. So at least for my family, we found that, I think it's called Sunrise Flour Mill. I think it's called Sunrise. And we buy that flour, and it's ancient, it's an ancient type of flour, and it has lower gluten. And a lot of people, even if they have celiac and they can't eat any other kind of flour or any other gluten, they can eat these ancient breeds. So I think it's sort of twofold. I think today's wheat tends to have higher gluten anyway, but I definitely agree with Zach Bush that there's probably a component of the glyphosate issue, because it makes us more sensitive to everything. When our gut flora is off kilter and we have basically constant inflammation in our guts, it causes the joints in our guts to become leaky. You've probably heard of leaky guts. That's caused by glyphosate. It loosens up those connections so that bigger chunks of food get through in your bloodstream than should be getting through. And then your body sees that as foreign invaders, and it creates an immune response, basically an allergy. So it causes inflammation on every level. I mean, there's nothing good about eating glyphosate. Zero.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it should be pulled off the market.
Oh, yeah.
There are economic reasons that our EPA continues to approve it in agriculture, because our farmers are addicted now to glyphosate because they have problems with super weeds. They have horrible weed problems. Over 50% of US farmland now has what's called super weeds, which means that even the weeds are now glyphosate resistant, because it's just like us,
it's evolution.
Antibiotic, right? So if we take antibiotics and we don't completely get the infection out, we will get antibiotic resistance. And then maybe the next time that antibiotic won't work for us against that bacterial infection, right? So with the weeds, it's the same thing in the fields with the farmers. The weeds have now become tolerant to glyphosate. So if the farmers don't spray the weeds before they're 4 inches tall, they have to be hand pulled. And if they're not hand pulled, they will grow much taller than the combines, and they stop combines. Like, there is no getting rid of those weeds. And it's just a giant problem. It's problem after problem. And so, now the farmers are stuck. Now they're like, what are we going to do? We can't control these weeds. So they're using stronger and stronger products. Like, you've probably heard of the issue with dicamba, where they're now trying to incorporate dicamba with glyphosate in these Roundup Ready crops or the GM crops, right? But the problem with dicamba is it has terrible drift, which means if there's any moisture in the air, any humidity, like, for example, where you live, Georgia or wherever, anywhere in the South or Texas, there's big humidity, the dicamba will travel up to 2 miles on the humidity, and they'll kill all the neighbors' crops in their path. So it's a giant problem right now. Farmers, they're just kind of stuck. They've got these properties, they're trying to raise a crop. It's very expensive to buy the products in the first place. Then they plant them, then they have super weeds that they don't know how to get rid of. And hiring people to hand pull weeds is just impossible. And then so they try mixing dicamba in, which I'm sure they know is not healthy. And they mix in the dicamba, and then it goes and kills their neighbors' fields, and their neighbors aren't happy, and the neighbors sue them. I mean, it is a giant mess right now. And for me, I took the accreditation course for NOFA, for the Organic Farming Association, to help me better understand all of this in terms of farming and landscape, and learn about soil biology. And for me, farmers need to go back to the way their grandfathers did things and heal the soil, heal the plants, heal us, and use more natural methods to control weeds, because otherwise it's just a chemical arms race, and we're not going to win. We are not winning this. We must heal the soil. We must heal the soil in order to heal the fields, the plants, the animals, and ourselves.
Speaking of soil, here's another paragraph, another few sentences in my handy dandy fact sheet from Beyond Pesticides.
Yeah.
So it says, residues of glyphosate may persist for months in anaerobic soil. Well, forget that. Concerns for soil health from long-term glyphosate use include reduction of nutrient availability for plants and organisms, disruption of organism diversity, especially in the areas around plant roots, reductions of beneficial soil bacteria, increases in plant root pathogens, disturbed earthworm activity, reduced bacterial nitrogen fixation. So all plants need nitrogen. Most plants have a relationship with bacteria to fix the nitrogen for them. So when you disrupt that, your plants are not getting the natural nitrogen fixation that you should want, instead of putting nitrogen fertilizers, which just most of it washes into the waterways. So disturbed earthworm activity, reduced bacterial nitrogen fixation, and compromised growth and reproduction in some soil and aquatic organisms. So glyphosate is a problem for all of these natural processes.
Yep.
So.
Yes, it is. It takes out all of the minerals. I was just looking right now. That's another expense for the farmers, right? The fields are unhealthy, so they have to buy more fertilizers, and they tend to buy petroleum-based fertilizers, which you're right. So much of that washes off into the water, and none of it really helps the plants. It's a very superficial kind of hit that kind of gets the plants green from the surface, but it does nothing to help the roots grow deeper. And the health of the plant is all about having deep roots. For example, my farmer friend in Iowa, when it rains or there's hail or there are storms or flooding or all these horrible things, two things happen in his fields that do not happen in his neighbor's fields. One, the plants stand up because they're stronger against the winds and the flooding and everything else. The second thing is that water on his field goes back down into the ground. Mm-hmm. And on his neighbor's field, mm-hmm. the plants lay down and lakes just form, mm-hmm. because the water can't go anywhere. And so then it runs off, takes the topsoil, pollutes the environment, dragging all those chemicals with it, all the way into the rivers, down the streams, into the ocean, destroys everything. And sorry, that's my little dog. But no, yeah, it's just a mess. So, I mean, just like a farmer would want stronger plants who could withstand the storms that come, getting back to COVID, it's just like what you said. We want our bodies and our immune system to be as healthy as possible so we can withstand disease or virus or anything we may face, so we can fight it off. And when we're lacking in these minerals and nutrients, and our system is already inflamed and we're having leaky gut, etc., if something hits us, we're less apt to be able to fight it off. I mean, it's not really a secret, I don't think, that the people that are succumbing first to COVID, if you look at your averages, there are people that don't tend to have very healthy diets. They tend to be maybe a little overweight, and their system is just not as resilient, so they can't fight it off. Right. And it's tragic. It's just tragic. It's all about diet. If I were president, my first thing, I know Michelle Obama tried to do this, but my first thing would be talking about organic food, gardens, better nutrients in kids' diets, especially for the kids that are in, even adults, anyone. We've discussed it before, Howard, on other shows, that people in food deserts, right? They should have the right to fresh produce that's clean and healthy and readily available. So you shouldn't have to be, you shouldn't have to be superhuman or privileged to get good food. Good food should be readily available for everyone. And, what's that guy's name? I think it's Ron White. He's got the TED Talk in LA about, I think he's called the Guerrilla Gardener. And he planted gardens all over South LA in those little strips by the sidewalk. And he said, growing plants, growing vegetables is like growing money. And it's true. And it also can improve all of our health to have fresh food. We need to make some changes as a society. And it doesn't matter who, and it doesn't matter in what neighborhood. It needs to happen in every neighborhood. Every neighborhood, we need to clean up our landscaping and stop using horrible products, including not only glyphosate, but all the other chemicals that we use. We need to just get off of this system. The big problem is the universities and all the extension programs where landscapers and farmers are trained in ag or landscaping. They're all chemical centric. And that's a big problem, is just simply education. There's nobody out there that's going to prefer to work with chemicals if they know they can produce maybe greater yields or healthier food or be healthier themselves or have healthier families. There's no farmer that wouldn't say, okay, I'd like to learn these other methods. But we don't have a big infrastructure yet to train them in how to do this. I just think at this point, we're at the point where it's really a tipping point where the realization is there that we probably shouldn't be using glyphosate or these other chemicals. I think the realization is now there because of these lawsuits. Awareness has grown. And I think we're kind of at the point where a lot of people are saying, now what do we do? How do we change? And I think that's the thing that we all have to address moving forward. And that's the positive message. This is not all doom and gloom. I mean, at least now there's awareness and people understand what's going on. But the issue with glyphosate is that, sure, Bayer bought Monsanto and Bayer's been losing all these lawsuits and they're going to have to pay out all these money and people are more aware now. I think that part's great. The part that I'm not as thrilled with is that Bayer has decided to pull Roundup from the home market because that's where they're tending to lose all their lawsuits. Mm-hmm. And it's still going to be out there in landscaping and in agriculture. So at that point, it's for the consumers to kind of take over and say, we're just not buying those foods that mm-hmm. have been sprayed with glyphosate. Mm-hmm. And so we still need to educate people that this is what's in the grocery store. And you can choose the goldfish that contain glyphosate, or you can choose the organic goldfish. And the organic goldfish do cost more, and that is an issue. But the more we switch to the organic products, the less expensive those products are going to become. So
yeah, and the more available. Less expensive and more available. Let me read another paragraph of this, and then we'll talk about that as long as we want to. And then at the end, let's name some things that maybe are steps in the direction we need to go. Like, what can our listeners do? So, but first, here's this paragraph is effects on non-target animals. So you're not trying to harm these animals with your pesticide, but here's a result. So glyphosate use directly impacts a variety of non-target animals, including insects, earthworms, and fish, and indirectly impacts birds and small mammals. Roundup kills beneficial insects, including parasitoid wasps, those are important, lacewings, and ladybugs. Repeated applications of glyphosate significantly affect the growth and survival of earthworms. Environmental factors such as high sedimentation, increases in temperature and pH levels increase the toxicity of Roundup, especially to young fish. So lots of animals are affected by the use of glyphosate.
I know wildlife scientists who are out there studying the tumors now, the cancerous tumors on deer and birds, and they just have huge tumors, and mm-hmm. it's tragic. And they didn't see this before. Like, this is all developed. I mean, when you talked about all these chronic illnesses starting to skyrocket in the late 80s, GM crops were introduced kind of in the mid 80s, and then by the late 80s they were kind of everywhere, right? It had spread, and that's when the illnesses started. So I certainly wouldn't say that that's the only cause of these massive autoimmune illnesses that are in everyone now, but I would say it's definitely one of the leading causes. That's definitely my opinion. And I mean, I grew up in California. We used to have crazy monarch butterflies. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like
Mm-hmm.
thousands. We would come
Mm-hmm.
across, on a hiking trail on a
Mm-hmm.
log or a tree, and it would just, the whole thing would be orange. Like it'd be
Mm-hmm.
huge, huge numbers of butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
If I see one now, I get excited.
I know.
They're just gone. The butterflies are gone. Bees are disappearing. We're losing our pollinators, and earthworms are the king of, the soil engineers. They help keep the soil loose and clean, and they help with the breakdown in the soil, and they help all of our soil biology go. They're so important for plants. I mean, all of these creatures, all of them. And that's what's really crazy. I don't think there's, if I had to think about it, I don't think there's anything that's not affected by glyphosate. I don't know what happens to cockroaches. I haven't really looked into that, but I don't think there's a critter that's not negatively affected by this chemical that we're gratuitously applying everywhere we possibly can. I mean, I think it's time for us all to stop. I wish we could stop cold turkey.
Yeah.
But the best we can do is keep talking about it like we are, and keep educating and support organizations like Beyond Pesticides, and keep working on it.
Right.
Keep working on it and just spread the word. And, the thing with organic is it seems more challenging if you don't have a lot of means. And I will agree that in our family, for example, we sort of stopped going to restaurants, and we took that budget of going out to eat and we put that into more expensive groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And we're happier and healthier for it. We just cook at home. But you could also, plant a little garden. It's amazing what you can grow in a really small garden. Or maybe if you get to know a farmer, maybe you could barter for some skill that you might have. Say you have accounting skills, swap, swap, barter, beg, borrow, or steal. Just figure out how to get cleaner food into your environment, into your body. Maybe YMCAs, maybe there are local gardening classes, or maybe at local universities, even these huge ag universities that seem so chemically based. I'm learning that many of them have organic departments. And if you call them up and say, look, I need help, I want to have a garden, or I want to start a garden club or something, there are things that can be done. And if you could even, excuse me, just reduce the foods that have glyphosate in your diet. You don't have to go 100% right away. Just, even if it's gradual, you'll see improvements.
Right. So what we've got so far, here are actions that we can take to somehow reduce the amount of glyphosate in our own lives, and maybe at some point have that work its way into public policy. So number one, we can look at the family budget and say, maybe let's eat out less so we can afford more for organic foods. That's one thing. Number two, maybe we can grow some of our own food in community gardens. Number three, there might be some support or assistance in universities, so if universities have organic departments, how do we access that? How can they help us?
That's a really good question, because I haven't formally done this. I've just spoken with people that work in university departments, but a lot of times they'll have funding to come and help you with things. If you have a garden, or you have a community project, or if you need to do soil testing. Soil testing is a big part of making sure you have a healthy garden. It all starts with the soil. So you want to start with soil testing, and then, soil amendments and so on. And experts in this field can help you. So I'm just saying, approach them and see what kind of help they might be able to offer for you. Maybe one of their scientists will want to do a study on your project. You never know. You never know where you can get help. You just have to ask. And so where you can get help. But the one thing I will tell you is that people that know about gardens, like citizens, gardening clubs, neighbors, for the most part, they are extremely passionate. And if you want to come back, if you want to come on board and share their passion, all the people I know who garden, they post like crazy on social media when they grow zucchini successfully, or they give something to their neighbor. I mean, they're so passionate. People are out there that want to help you. There are people who are running seed banks that would probably help you to get seed, and that will give you advice. If you come in and you say you're sincerely interested in learning, maybe what you could do is work with them on their garden for a little bit until you learn how to do it. And then they'll give you a little bit of the food in exchange for your help. And then you'll have that source of food. So, I mean, some of it takes getting clever, but I just know that there are communities around that are open to talking to you about learning these methods. And I think raising our food maybe shortly is going to become more important than ever. I know.
I agree. You know, one thing that's occurring in the news, and I don't know, economics usually doesn't take care, economics alone usually doesn't take care, but there may come a time, we just don't know when, there may come a time when either fossil fuels are not as readily available or are not as cheap, or something happens to the world economy and shipping in food from other hemispheres is just not, or even California or Florida, you know, you know, so that kind of thing, we can get started now and save ourselves some pain down the road.
Yeah, I mean, even if you want to think about climate change, right? You want to reduce trucking. For example, this movement, which is not really that, it's more of a business opportunity. Take Bill Gates, right? He is now the largest owner of all US farmland, and he loves chemically based farming. He loves Monsanto.
I know, it's his favorite thing.
And
I think he loves that more than vaccines.
I don't know, but I know that he loves that. And
I'm not trying to get us banned. It just comes out. Sorry.
Well, it is he has a few passions, let's put it that way. And chemically based agriculture is one of his huge passions. And,
I know. He claims it's science. He claims it's science, but it's not about science. It's anti-science. It's like Vandana Shiva says, it's anti-food. It's not food. It's anti-food. It's the opposite of food.
Yeah, it's PHUDE. That's the kind of food it is. Not FOOD. But here's what I was going to say. He's promoting this fake meat, this beyond all this garbage. Please don't buy it. Please don't believe him. It's not healthy for you. It's virtually untested. It is really bad for the planet because it's made from GM soy, which has to be raised using glyphosate. And then so it's not healthy to begin with. It's not helping the planet. It's not helping the environment. It's not helping the air. It's not helping your body. And then it has to be trucked to a factory where they make this fake meat. I mean, if you don't want to eat meat, that's fine. If you do eat meat, please eat responsibly raised meat if you can find it from a local farmer. However, if you don't want to eat meat, that's great, but opt for the organic black bean burger or, you know, healthy food, organic mushrooms. Don't buy that Beyond Meat. Don't buy that fake stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, this kind of, whenever I noticed, for example, Greta has a conference coming up in April, I think, and it's like, what? Are you there? You went away for a minute. Your video went away.
I was coughing. Sorry.
Okay.
It was like Bill Gates talk.
Yeah, it's like don't tell me. I know that you're not telling me this, but don't tell me that veganism and it's not about vegan. If there's this idea that a plant-based diet is better than animal agriculture, that is a completely false distinction. If you don't want to eat animals, that's your business. But there's ethics, there's climate and environment, and then there's usually health. Yeah. So
like, what do you get from eating that food?
I mean, when it comes to climate and environment, there is no, okay, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it with confidence, that there is nothing harder on the environment, just about, than what we're talking about, then monocrops, genetically modified monocrop, even if they're not genetically modified, any type of chemical agriculture, chemicals, chemical fertilizers, chemical pesticides, tillage, those three things, and monocrop in monocultures, those four factors together, there is nothing that is harder on nature and biodiversity and water quality and climate. And you can have that, all of that, you can grow plant-based foods with chemical fertilizers, chemical pesticides, with or without the genetic modified, but monocultures, and all of that is terrible for biodiversity and water and fossil fuel usage. So
that's true. That's the very worst thing. But I have to say, I have friends who are vegan. I completely respect them. I'm not against it if somebody wants to do that. And I am with them. I am on the same page with them when it comes to CAFOs and raising meat on the inhumane, polluting, cruel, farms. I am not for that. I actually, health-wise, I am for minimizing meat. I think that that's good. I think there's a balance. I shouldn't consume too much. And ethically, the meat farming is, well, it's right up there with the fake meat environment. It's the same. They're both horrible for the environment. I just, but responsibly raised meat, our Great Plains were formed by the bison, and ruminant animals can be a healthy part of an ecological system. And you can be kind to the animals when they're raised. They can be very happy. It can be a very kind farm or ranch. It's just that I think we need to consume less, and we need to stop this huge factory production of any kind of food, whether it's meat or otherwise. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. And there's no food shortage on the planet there. That's a big myth, that we're running out of food. We have to have industrial agriculture. Complete myth.
Okay, here's another myth about industrial agriculture. Now, this is, Vandana Shiva talks about this a lot. It's published, it's an article on the website grain.org, grain.org. And it's put out, it's a publication by the UN on grain.org, and Vandana Shiva talks about it. So between Vandana Shiva and the United Nations, that has a lot of credibility to me. Roughly speaking, 25% of the world's food is grown on 75% of the farmland, and 75% of the world's food is grown on 25% of this farmland. It is the small farms, the small organic local farms that grow the bulk of the world's food. So if anything, industrial agriculture takes land away from the small, regenerative, biologically diverse farms that could produce a whole lot more food if the land was freed up for that. Plus a lot of the,
it wouldn't eliminate our pollinators either. Our pollinators need a place to land and thrive and live. And so much of what I've been learning, in the organic landscaping is that you need a mix. You need small, medium, large, and you need different kinds of plants. You need some that need more water and some that need less water, and some that have this kind of flower and some of this kind of tree. And when you have that mix that Vandana Shiva talks about, that's when you have the healthy ecosystem. And I think that that's not discussed when in these companies that want to sell the glyphosate, based systems, they completely ignore the ecosystem.
So why do you need glyphosate to begin, or why is there a perceived need for glyphosate or any insecticide, any pesticide, herbicide, fungicide? Why is, the reason is because you have done something very unnatural. You have established, you're trying to establish a monoculture, usually of grain, sometimes legumes, but you've got, when you've got corn as far as the eye can see, then nature is a threat. And that's why you need to make war on nature with insecticides, with herbicides. And that's a choice that you made. And when we don't have to do it that way, we can, for one, well, we can get, if we choose to, we can get most of our food from biologically diverse farms. And we don't have to consume so much grain.
Well, here's the thing that I'm going to say. When you're talking about those, you know, that scenario that all of us have seen, like endless miles and miles of one kind of crop. The problem with that is that that system of farming causes disease. It causes disease in the soil, it causes disease in the plants, and it causes disease in the animals, and it causes disease in us.
How does it cause disease?
Where? How does it cause disease? Because you're knocking out the balance that you need to have. For example, take just bacteria, okay? You're manipulating the nutrients. I told you about the minerals, right? Glyphosate sucks out minerals or makes it non-available. So the system is not as healthy, say the soil bacteria, right? You've normally got a balance of good and bad bacteria, right? The good bacteria keeps the bad bacteria in check. But with these systems, especially GMO farming, the good bacteria goes away. You have a predominance of the bad bacteria. Now the farmer has to buy another product to control the bad bacteria.
You're trying to micromanage living systems. You're trying to micromanage living systems by killing the ones that you think you don't need. But when you kill something that you think is bad, you're also killing something that's good. I mean, diversity is good. Diversity is good for life. So when you kill part of the diversity, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you're right.
When you kill part of the diversity,
you have a weakness. The plants, for example, plants that have more pests or more fungus or more mycotoxins or whatever problems they have, those are the plants that have these weaknesses. So these weaknesses are creating disease, because disease comes where the plant is weak or where we are weak.
Oh, yeah, okay, Virus,
so that's why viruses, spreading infection, mold, mycotoxins in crops, like it's all the same. The bad things will attack the weak ones.
Right.
It's just nature. And so when you mess up that balance, you create a vulnerability for the bad fungus or the bad disease or bad mold to come in. And in healthy crops or in balanced, ecosystems, you don't have problems. But in modern farming, you create those problems and then you have to kill a chemical to fix that problem. Then you need to buy another one to fix that problem. Then same in our bodies. We have to go to the farm and take one medication, and then we have another problem. We have to take another medication. And it's very profitable for the guys selling the chemicals or the pills, but it's not a solution. It's a Band-Aid until the next thing comes along. And what we need to do is go back and focus on healthy soil, healthy animals, healthy plants, healthy bodies. And that really creates awareness. So people realize to do it, but it's exactly what you're like. Someone wants desires miles and miles of corn, like one crop and zero weeds. And it's super weird. If you've ever had a chance.
We subsidize that, Kathleen. We subsidize that. Yeah. Taxpayers subsidize that. For what?
Yeah. Our taxes go to, if you go stand in one of these GM fields or next to one, it's dead quiet. All you hear are the leaves.
Oh, yeah. Right.
The leaves hitting each other in the wind.
Yeah.
There are no crickets. There are no birds. Zero. There is no sound. It's completely unnatural, these chemical environments. And they're massive. They're just huge. And this is the stuff our friend Bill Gates thinks is fabulous. I don't think so. I would rather be in one of Vandana Shiva's ideal gardens with butterflies and birds and variety of plants. And maybe I'll have some of this kind of lettuce and this kind of seed. Disease, like balanced ecosystems don't need all the chemicals. And this is the thing that people need to realize, that these unnatural systems, like what you're talking about, they're devoid of everything. Devoid of nutrition. Right. They're devoid of good health. They're devoid of, all the kinds of life you should have. They don't have earthworms even. I mean, even what's below the soil is not healthy. You don't have any of the good bacteria or the good critters that, and help the plants stay strong if a storm comes. You don't. You just have weak fields that are susceptible to flooding and hail much more than the neighbor with the healthy soil. So, and here's the thing. Here's the thing that's very interesting. Plants give back to soil. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
The soil biology gives food to the plant. The plant takes the food, grows up, does photosynthesis, and it develops sugars, which go back down, and the plants feed their buddies. Everything works together. When you have a chemical system, and I know we're getting off the path a little bit of just glyphosate. Glyphosate really is the king product. These GM crops are glyphosate ready, glyphosate tolerant crops, whether it's Roundup or some Chinese brand that they're using. That's the system they're doing.
So one thing that you said is that, when you have a system, like a living system, where the plants are not getting the nutrients that they need, then the plant tends to be weak. And that's when microbes and insects attack the plant and take advantage of that vulnerability. Conversely,
Absolutely.
If you have living soil, if you can have a chemical system or a living system. If you have a living soil, then that living soil tends to deliver to the plant what it needs to be strong, so that it's naturally resilient to the pests and pathogens. I forget what plant it was, but plants tend to be resilient to maybe aphids if they can fully develop and they have complete proteins, whereas the aphids can only eat the partial proteins. So,
and the aphids know, the bugs know.
Yeah.
The bugs know. They have like bug radar, which plant or which tree is weaker, and that's the one they'll attack. And if there's a healthy one right next to it, it might not have any pests at all, because the bugs aren't going to waste their time. They're going to go to the one where they're going to get the biggest feast. It's nature. They attack the plants that are weak. It's really crazy, but all this stuff works together, and you don't need a huge science degree. You just need to understand that, the way God made things, there's a balance in nature. There is a balance that comes, and even things that you can't. If you look at these GM crops, you eyeball them, you're like, wow, that's nice and bright green. That must be healthy. But the soil in these crops, like even in California, when I drive up to the Central Valley, you could just see from the road how the dirt is dead, and it's dirt. It's not soil. Soil is dark and rich, and you can smell it. It smells like earth, and it sticks together. If you hold it in your hand, it'll kind of clump, be sticky. All that's evidence of healthy soil biology. These fields where they've used chemicals, chemical herbicide, chemical pesticide, and then chemical fertilizers, that dirt is like, the color is like chalk.
These things are called biocide. All the sides, they're biocides. They kill life. If it's an herbicide, it kills life. If it's an insecticide, it kills life. Fungicide kills life. So
pesticide kills life.
And life thrives in a diverse ecosystem, and the biocides kill off the diversity. They're killing something, and when they kill something, they're killing off the diversity. Yeah,
they are not good for us.
Right.
And they may be convenient in the moment that you want to get rid of that weed, but down the road, it's destroying the balance in the whole system. And
you have to look at who wins and who loses. So Josh Tickle wrote the book Kiss the Ground. The movie, there's a popular movie based on that, but the book and the audio book is fantastic. And Josh says that the agriculture is organized around the profits and power of the biggest 20 agribusiness corporations. It's the people that sell the chemicals. People that sell the chemicals, the people that sell the equipment, people that sell the patented seeds, the fertilizers.
Well,
So
don't forget who benefits on the other end.
the
All of
big
these
food
ag
companies.
companies are partner with they're partner with pharmaceutical companies.
Okay. Mm.
So
So if they make
they
us
make
sick,
a fortune selling all these
yeah,
chemicals. And then when the farm animals are not well or we're not well, then the
mm,
pharmaceutical company takes over.
right.
So it's just a profit driven thing. They know it. Their scientists know everything,
Yeah,
little me is saying. They're well aware of this system and what it does to us. In the long run, we become profit centers for them because, it makes me so sad when you drive through areas where, if you drive through areas that are urban, you know, they're food deserts. They're food deserts. Like the only food those people can buy a lot of times is what's it say, 7-Eleven, say, okay.
mhm,
Some people I've seen mothers on TV that had to take like 2 buses just to get to a grocery store that had fresh produce.
mm,
In those situations, you have those food stores that just sell that packaged stuff.
right.
And then you have dialysis centers.
Mm,
And it's heartbreaking.
mhm,
For me, it just makes me feel sad that those are the businesses that thrive in those communities.
mhm.
It's just wrong. It's just wrong. It's all connected and it's just wrong. And I honestly think I've kind of given up a little on our government. I mean, I still
Yeah,
think we
right,
should talk about this, but
right,
it's really hard for
right.
citizens to battle against these giant lobbying machines.
Yeah,
I think that what we can do, Hart, is work with communities to help communities
right.
raise awareness.
Hmm.
People start their own gardens, they start healthy farming, and they talk with their local farmer, and we just spread the word,
Yeah.
community to community.
Well, that's a great place to end. Kathleen, how can people get in touch with you and say, feel free to make a pitch for what you do and how can people
Well,
get in touch with you?
I do have a website that I need to get on and set up more
Hmm.
formally. It's Live Clean, Livekleen. And what I plan to do is continue to raise awareness with people about household products or safer ways of, getting food, feeding your family, recipes, I don't know, all kinds of things. But
Hmm.
um, at the moment, I'm working for a company called Contact Organics, which is just started in the US. And we're selling a non-toxic herbicide that can be used in place of products like Roundup.
Hmm.
And the reason I'm doing it was not just because I wanted to go out and make money. It's because for years
Hmm.
I've spoken about this cause, and so much of the feedback I get, especially from landscapers, people that work for cities, people who would be open to changing, they say, okay, what can I use instead? And
Hmm.
I discovered this product and it really works. It works better than any other organic product that I've seen. Our product is not certified organic, but it is a bioherbicide. It is non-toxic and it
Hmm.
works very, very well. And it's much safer than using products like glyphosate or
Hmm.
glufosinate.
Hmm.
So I've jumped onto their team to help represent them because I think it's important that safer products get out there.
Hmm.
And I am open to anyone using any product that is safer than Roundup. So
Right.
if you're looking for an herbicide for your yard or your community, we sell Contact Organics. We do sell to farmers. We sell to some very well-known sustainable farmers, universities, cities, and also local homeowners. And it's safe to use around your pets, safe to use around your parks, and it does not harm the soil biology. We've done extensive soil testing by
Mm.
a top level USDA retired scientist who's now an ag professor at University of Missouri. He did 2 years of soil testing for us before the product came on the market. And I'm just all about people being safer. And so a lot of people say, I need another solution to killing weeds. There are homemade solutions too that you can use that don't work quite as well as our product, Contact Organics, but vinegar, dish soap, and salt, those recipes can work too.
Hmm.
So I just recommend people use safer products, and I
Okay.
am representing Contact Organics because I believe in it, and I think that communities need an answer.
Yeah.
Our product is safe for gardens too. So I think that, I hope we can give a lot of resources people Hart that can help them to learn and go out and create thriving, healthy communities, whether it's, just flowers or a park or your garden.
Sounds great. Well, Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an exciting conversation, and we'll do the same thing about a month from now. And to our audience, hope you have a great evening. So, Kathleen, hang on the call, and I'll end the Facebook part. Goodbye, everybody.
Okay.